Sometimes fate pushes a man so low that even a burden can feel like a blessing. And that's exactly where Tom Morrison found himself the day he unfolded the inheritance letter that would change his life forever. The document was written in stiff legal language, but its message was simple. A great-uncle he had never met had left him a decaying Victorian mansion in Millbrook, Indiana, along with just enough money to cover 1 year of property taxes. For most people, inheriting that house would have been a curse. 30 years abandoned, the locals called it a money pit, with rotting beams, sagging porches, and a reputation for misfortune that stretched back decades. But for Tom, who had lost his factory job 6 months earlier and was barely scraping by with his 8-year-old son, Danny, even a crumbling roof looked better than the suffocating one-bedroom apartment they were crammed into. He was a carpenter by trade, a man who had once restored homes and built cabinets with pride, but now his tools sat in boxes like relics of a better life. Danny's bed was jammed against the wall of their makeshift dining area, his school books stacked on a folding card table, and his cracked baseball glove resting on the counter like a silent reminder of promises his father hadn't been able to keep. So when Danny looked up with wide eyes and asked, "Dad, are we really moving into a mansion?" Tom swallowed hard and forced a smile. He wanted to say it was nothing more than a broken-down house, but hope flickered in his son's face, and that was something too precious to dim. And deep inside, Tom wondered if this unwanted gift from a dead relative could somehow become the second chance they so desperately needed, unaware that what lay hidden in those walls was far more than just dust and decay. The journey to Millbrook felt like stepping back in time. 2 hours of rolling farmland and quiet towns until they reached a main street with faded storefronts and shuttered diners, the skeleton of prosperity long gone. Locals watched curiously as Tom asked for directions at Henderson's Market, where Margaret Henderson, a sharp-eyed woman with silver hair, told him she lived next to the Blackwood place. Her words carried a weight Tom couldn't quite place. Old houses hold many secrets, some best left untouched. By the time father and son reached the mansion at the end of Elm Street, the sun was low, casting long shadows over the rusting iron fence and wild hedges that choked the property. The house loomed like a fallen queen, its bay windows and carved towers magnificent even beneath peeling paint and broken shingles. Danny breathed "wow" with a mixture of awe and fear, but Tom's carpenter's instincts stirred as he studied the solid foundation beneath the neglect. Unlocking the heavy oak door, they stepped into a grand hall with walnut banisters, stained glass windows, and dust-thick floors that still whispered of elegance. The chandelier in the parlor glimmered faintly, marble mantels bore the marks of craftsmen long gone, and each room they explored carried echoes of a time when the house had been the grandest in town. Danny, already imagining secret passages, raced ahead with laughter Tom hadn't heard in months. For the first time in a long while, possibility filled the air between them. Still, Mrs. Henderson's cautious words clung to Tom's mind. The place was beautiful, yes, but it felt alive, as though it had been waiting for their arrival. And when she brought them supper that evening and warned that Henry Blackwood always left things exactly as he wanted them found, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that their move was less an accident of inheritance and more the beginning of a puzzle that had been waiting generations for the right pair of hands. Life quickly fell into rhythm inside the Blackwood mansion, though every day brought new challenges. Mornings were spent clearing debris and restoring rooms, afternoons filled with carpentry jobs in town that barely covered their bills, and evenings dedicated to making their new home livable. Danny threw himself into the adventure, proudly naming himself Chief Dust Removal Specialist, and pestering Mrs. Henderson for stories of the Blackwood family whenever she came by with warm meals. It was during one of those evenings that the boy discovered something strange in the parlor wall, a spot where the wallpaper had peeled back to reveal not plaster but a hidden recess. With trembling hands, Tom reached in and pulled out an ornate brass key, heavy and engraved with symbols, a compass rose, interlocking circles, and a heart-shaped head etched with cryptic markings. Danny's eyes lit up like it was treasure from a pirate's chest, but Tom noticed something deeper. Those very symbols repeated throughout the house, carved into banisters, inlaid into stained glass, embedded in ceiling medallions. It wasn't a key to any ordinary lock. That night by lamplight, he sketched the markings and felt sure they formed part of a code. His suspicions deepened the next day when a sleek black sedan pulled into the drive and Marcus Sterling, a polished lawyer with cold eyes, introduced himself as the representative of interested parties. He offered Tom an immediate fortune to sell the house, insisting it was a financial trap that would ruin him. But beneath Sterling's polite smile lurked something more, a hunger, an obsession, a hint that he knew the mansion held far more than cobwebs. Tom's refusal to sell hardened the man's expression, and his warning was laced with menace. This house has never brought its owners anything but ruin. As Sterling's car disappeared down the lane, Tom realized the mansion was not just an inheritance. It was a battlefield, and the mysterious key was the opening move in a game Henry Blackwood had designed decades ago. The puzzle deepened when Danny uncovered a hidden parchment behind a false book in the mansion's library. It was a floor plan marked with the same symbols as the key-dotted lines leading to areas that didn't exist on any blueprint. In spidery handwriting, it read, "For the rightful heir, when the time comes to claim what was lost." The words sent a chill through Tom. He tucked the map into his pocket as Sterling prowled the parlor, pressing him again to sell and muttering about debts between families. That night, alone by lamplight, Tom spread the parchment wide and realized it wasn't simply a map. It was a treasure trail laid through the very bones of the house. With Danny's boundless energy fueling the search, father and son began following the clues. In the library, they pressed a hidden tile and discovered a photo album embossed with the heart symbol, filled with Henry Blackwood's life. Pictures of him and a woman named Clara, their secret love affair, and a child who had been passed off as another man's son. The cryptic notes suggested betrayal, heartbreak, and a legacy buried in secrecy. To Danny, it was thrilling, like stepping into a real adventure story, but to Tom it was haunting. The parallels between Henry's desperate efforts to care for a hidden child and his own struggles as a single father were impossible to ignore. Each clue they uncovered, the star-painted ceiling in Danny's tower room that revealed a secret staircase, the hidden study locked for decades, only deepened the mystery. And when they finally opened that study with the ornate key and found Henry's journal, the truth spilled out. Robert Sterling had stolen the Blackwood empire through treachery, and Henry had spent his final years hiding a fortune, building puzzles meant only for the heir who would one day carry his bloodline forward. For Tom, every entry in that journal felt like Henry had been writing directly to him and his son. The journal became their guide, detailing not just Henry's heartbreak but his meticulous plans to restore justice. He had hidden wealth in secret vaults and recorded confessions that proved the Sterling family's treachery. Each discovery confirmed what Tom already sensed. This inheritance was more than chance. It was destiny. Their hunt led them into hidden passages beneath the house, where they uncovered Clara's love letters confessing the boy she bore was Henry's, not Robert Sterling's. They found a safe in the dining room, cracked only by Clara's birthday, inside holding financial records of a trust fund meant for her son. Piece by piece, Henry's truth was rising from the shadows. But with each step forward, Sterling's shadow lengthened over them. Inspectors suddenly appeared with code violations, environmental agencies demanded costly tests, and legal notices piled up accusing Tom of breaking terms of inheritance. It was clear Sterling was pulling strings, using his influence to force Tom out. Yet Tom refused to quit, driven not by the promise of riches, but by the look in his son's eyes every time another mystery unfolded. Then came the revelation that nearly broke him. Henry's fortune wasn't just in papers or bonds. Hidden deep within the mansion was a vault containing nearly $200 million, carefully amassed and protected for decades. But Henry's last note carried a warning. The fortune will reveal itself only to Clara's true grandson, and it will demand not greed but love and sacrifice. That line hit Tom like a hammer. For the first time, he realized this wasn't simply about treasure. It was about proving himself worthy, not just as heir, but as a father. With Mrs. Henderson's quiet guidance, they discovered the final map, etched into a locket Henry had entrusted to her decades earlier. It revealed the existence of the Vault of Truth, a chamber hidden beneath the mansion's foundation, accessible only by solving a mechanical puzzle that required both parent and child. The symbolism was undeniable. Henry had designed his legacy to be unlocked not by wealth, but by family. Tom and Danny descended into the underground passage, torches illuminating. Walls carved with love poems and cryptic inscriptions. At the center stood a massive marble chess knight mounted on a pedestal. Turning it according to dates from Henry and Clara's life, father and son worked together through trial and error until the final mechanism clicked. With a low rumble, the floor opened to reveal the vault. Inside was not only gold, bonds, and cash, but an archive of documents exposing Robert Sterling's decades of fraud. Among them, Henry's recordings captured Robert bragging about embezzlement and betrayal, sealing proof that the Sterling empire was built on lies. For Tom, holding those papers was like touching history, vindication for a man long branded a criminal. But before they could absorb the weight of what they'd found, voices echoed through the tunnel. Marcus Sterling had arrived, flanked by armed enforcers, his mask of civility gone, his eyes burning with obsession. Confronting Tom in the chamber, he declared the mansion rightfully his, spinning his father's lies as truth. But Tom, with Danny clutching his hand, stood firm. He had Henry's evidence, the wealth, and most importantly, the moral right. Sterling raged, calling it theft, calling Tom a fool, but even as the confrontation grew tense, Tom realized the real battle was not for money, it was for Danny's future. And no threat could force him to surrender that. What followed was a test of courage as much as wit. Trapped underground with Sterling closing in, Tom secured the most critical documents and guided Danny toward an escape passage revealed in Henry's final journal notes. Sterling's men tried to corner them, but the labyrinth of Blackwood's hidden architecture worked in their favor. When they finally emerged into the night air, clutching proof of the Sterling family's crimes, Tom knew their lives would never be the same. The mansion was no longer just a home or a burden. It was a fortress of truth, holding the evidence to shatter Marcus Sterling's power. In the days that followed, legal battles raged, inspectors returned, and Sterling wielded every weapon at his disposal. But armed with Henry's documents, Tom had the truth on his side, and the courts could no longer ignore what had been buried for decades. The exposure of Robert Sterling's embezzlement and Marcus's harassment turned public opinion, and the Blackwood name, once a whisper of scandal, was restored as a symbol of resilience and justice. For Danny, the mansion transformed from a dusty ruin into a place of wonder, where he slept each night beneath constellations that once guided his great-grandfather's clues. And for Tom, every plank nailed, every room restored, was no longer just labor. It was the rebuilding of a legacy meant for his son. In the end, Tom Morrison realized Henry Blackwood's greatest gift wasn't the fortune sealed in bearer bonds or the gold stacked in fireproof cases. It was the story itself, the chance to rewrite history, to give his son the kind of life built not on fear and scarcity, but on truth and strength. The mansion, once a decaying shell, now stood as both home and monument, its walls echoing with secrets that had finally seen daylight. Marcus Sterling faded into defeat, undone not by force but by evidence, his family's lies exposed for all to see. For Danny, childhood no longer meant staring out of a cramped apartment window dreaming of more. Now he had his own tower room, his own adventures, and the knowledge that he came from a line of people who chose love and justice over greed. And for Tom, every time he walked those echoing halls, he felt Henry's presence, not as a ghost but as a guiding hand, reminding him that even the most broken man can find redemption when he fights for family. Their story wasn't about luck or chance. It was about resilience, persistence, and the unshakable bond between a father and his son. And as their journey continued, with work still to be done and challenges yet to face, Tom knew one truth above all. Some inheritances are measured not in money, but in the courage to uncover the past and claim the future. If this story moved you, make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a comment about what you would have done if you were in Tom's shoes, and share this video so more people can hear the incredible tale of the mansion, the mystery, and the $200 million secret that changed everything. Because sometimes, the greatest treasures are hidden not in vaults, but in the stories we choose to pass on.